Clearly, this is a sermon that's an encouragement to Reverend Ford as well as to Sister Ford. I will also tell you that it's an encouragement to all of you all.
Amen.
They say that a true leader knows how to create and develop other true leaders. And so that's one thing we have done very well here at Grace First Baptist Church. When we have the auxiliary swearing ceremony, it's amazing to me to have all these folks standing up here to get sworn in. And what that means is, Reverend Ford in this church is creating and developing new leaders, strong leaders, to go out there and preach the word. There's a saying that I like to say is that there's a leader in every city. And so although we're celebrating Reverend Ford and Sister Ford today, I'd also like to give a word to encourage every leader in this church, because at the end of the day, it's our responsibility, not Reverend Ford's. He teaches us, but it's our responsibility to go out there and teach others. Amen? Amen. So if you all will stand, I got 5 verses out of Isaiah, but they're spread apart. So we're going to turn to a few different sections of Isaiah. We're going to start with Isaiah chapter 1, verse 1. Isaiah chapter 1, verse 1. And that reads, the vision of Isaiah, the son of Amos, which he saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah. So you notice there are 4 kings, all of them kings of Judah. If you will turn to Isaiah chapter 1, verse 3. The ox knoweth his owner, and the ass his master's crib. But Israel doesn't know. It doesn't understand. It has no consideration. My people doth not consider. Isaiah chapter 10, verse 24. Isaiah chapter 10, verse 24 reads, therefore thus saith the Lord God of hosts, O my people that dwellest in Zion, be not afraid of the Assyrian. He shall smite thee with a rod, and shall lift up his staff against thee after the manner of Egypt. Isaiah chapter 31, verse 1. Woe to them that go down to Egypt for help, and stay on horses and trust in chariots, because they are many, and in horsemen, because they are very strong. But they look not unto the Holy One of Israel, neither seek the Lord. And then finally, for our theme this morning, Isaiah chapter 40, verse 31. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. And so my subject for this morning is Isaiah's advice to the king. Isaiah's advice to the king. And really Isaiah's advice to all of us as leaders in every city. If we go to that slide, I've shown this slide before. Isaiah's story starts in what we call the Middle East. So there's a section of the Middle East where much of the biblical history occurred. And as we go to the next slide, you'll see us narrowing down that section above Africa and just below Europe there in Eastern Europe. And you'll really start to see where the history of the Bible started to occur. And then you got the Assyria up in the top section there, and the bigger square. Within the bigger square, you got the smaller little circle. And that's where Israel was. As we go to the next slide, you'll start to see the issue for Isaiah starting to take place. If you look at that small little green dark circle, that was Assyria. And I'm sure you all have heard of Assyria, right? Assyria was a major player back in the biblical days. But Assyria started off as that little dark green spot, but slowly expanded to the middle green spot. You see that? So the territory of Syria slowly grew over time.
Yeah.
And then you see the even lighter green is a much bigger area of which the Assyrians are slowly taking over that entire location. And so where is Israel and Judah? It's at that little circle. Now, I don't know if you can see this on this particular slide, but below are the dates. And it shows the dates of how Assyria moved. And so the dark green was earlier time period. Then the lighter green was the next time period. But then the even lighter green was the most recent time period. And so where did Isaiah the prophet, where did this particular verse and this particular chapter come into play? It came right at right between the very light green and the middle green. The second and third levels there. And so what this tells me is that Isaiah was very concerned about the Assyrians. He was very concerned that they started off as that small little dark green spot and have slowly expanded their expansion to include Israel. And so I show you all this to show you the mindset of Isaiah. What he was wanting to teach and show and portray to the folks that he was advising at that particular time. So if we go to the next slide. Isaiah's advice was basically twofold, and this is really my main point for this morning, my advice to Reverend Ford. Isaiah's advice to those folks that were there and to the four kings of Judah that he was advising was, number one, don't turn to Assyria and don't turn to Egypt. Who was Assyria? Assyria was that small little dark green spot. Our enemies. Slowly expanding to try to cover, and eventually did, cover the area that was now Israel, or then Israel. They're your enemies. And so Isaiah was saying to all those four kings, don't give in, don't submit to the Assyrians, your enemies. You know how easy it oftentimes is for many of us to give in to our enemies. People do it all the time. What's that saying that we often hear? If you can't beat them, join them. But Isaiah was telling those four kings, and I tell Reverend Ford this morning, don't give in to the north. Okay. Don't give in to your enemies. Don't give in to the Assyrians. But then on the other side of that, as Assyria approached, was Egypt. They might have been friendly folks. And so what Isaiah was telling those four kings is, don't give in to your enemies, the Assyrians, but also don't accept any handouts from Egypt. All right. So if you go back and look at those verses that we read, you'll see Assyria mentioned. You'll also see Egypt mentioned. So you have one on top, the north, you have the other from the bottom. And as Israel was being closed in on, it was tough. It was trying to figure out what we as a small country can do. So Isaiah said, don't befriend the north and don't befriend the south. And what he did tell these four kings was one thing. And this is going to be our advice to Reverend Ford this morning and to all of you. When you're stuck in a situation, don't turn to the north, don't turn to the south, don't say you turn to friends or enemies. There's only one person we should be turning to. And that's turning to God. So if you go on to the next slide there, this presented two challenges. Number one, you had the enemy that was coming down. Who were the Assyrians? The Assyrians were a world empire. The capital was Nineveh. That capital today is located right near Iraq. You can still see the ruins of Nineveh when you're in the present-day city of Mosul. So that's the part of the world that we're talking about that still exists today and still feels remnants of all this stuff that has happened in the past. Who were Assyrians, they were fierce. They were ruthless warriors. They showed little mercy to every person that they were attempting to conquer. Not only that, the Assyrians, they developed iron. So now you had these warfare folks coming in that were ruthless with iron, just decimating people that they were overtaking. Now, if you all remember the story of Jonas, Jonas was asked to preach to Nineveh, the Assyrians. And Jonas, when he was so afraid and so unwilling to go to Nineveh because of how evil and how devastating those individuals were, the Assyrians were, he chose not to go and preach. And so what did he do? He ran. He jumped on a boat. And he went out as far as he could, but eventually they dumped him off the boat. He went into God used a well to save him. The well spit him back out at Nineveh. And so at that point, he was forced to preach to the Assyrians, to Nineveh. But what that tells us is that these were mean folks. These were mean folks that started off as that dark little green spot that were slowly making their way down to Israel. And nobody wanted to deal with them, not even Jonas. But you know what? If we think about our lives today, we have an onslaught of an enemy that's around us and surrounding us every single day. I don't know if it's necessarily the President, Trump. Some might consider him part of that onslaught. But I do know that even this week, we saw the vicissitudes of our own country. Yesterday we had a black woman become a princess. An amazing thing to celebrate. But earlier in the week, we had Santa Fe kids in Texas decimated by a young man with a gun. And so, sometimes it feels like we're taking 2 steps forward, but then every now and again we'll take a step back. And why is that? And that's because the enemy, the devil, is slowly making his way around and through us. And if we're not careful about what we do and how we react, some of us might become friends with the enemy. Or if we're afraid of all that stuff that's happening, we might turn to another friend for support. But what does the Bible tell us? What did Isaiah tell these 4 kings? He says, don't befriend the enemy, but also don't worry about your friends. There's only one person you need to turn to, Rev, and that's God. So you see, number one, the onslaught of the enemy coming down in the form of the Assyrians. And we see that every day that we live. That, the Bible tells us things are going to get worse down here. Things are going to get worse before they get better. And so we see a slow deterioration that's happening within our country. But also, he's dealing with stubborn people. These kings were dealing with stubborn Israelites. In fact, the very reason that the Assyrians were set down was because you had stubborn folk. Israelites have been given a lot. Have been delivered from this and from that. Given chance after chance, time and time again. But they would not listen. The Bible says the ox knows his home. The other animal knows its owner. But the Israelites, they don't have a clue. And the same thing happens with all of us. You guys are stubborn folks. I know everybody has some nice things to say, and you're giving nice little cards and gifts to the pastor and his wife and so forth, but y'all are not like that every day. see how the Israelites, how stubborn they were. So number one, the whole reason the Assyrians came down is because we have some stubborn folks that God needed to teach a lesson to. But if you look to the right there, you see the four kings. You see King Uzziah, you see King Jotham, you see King Ahaz, and you see King Hezekiah. Now, what you don't necessarily know about these four was that they're all related. Uzziah's son was Jotham. Jotham's son was Ahaz. Ahaz's son was Hezekiah. And I went ahead and added Manasseh, and he was Hezekiah's son. Now, what I also put up there is I put the red and green. Green are the good folks. Uzziah was a man said to be a man of God. Jotham the same way. But then what happens? Ahaz comes about, the son of Jotham. And what does he do? He overturns and undermines everything that his father had put in place. He's turned from a Christian basis and point of view to supporting the other side. And then what does it say there? He asked for and received the assistance from the Assyrian king Tiglath-Pileser. This is all during the time of Isaiah. Isaiah has already told them, don't befriend the Assyrians. Don't befriend Egypt. The only one you need to turn to is God. And what has King Ahaz done? He's turned to the Assyrians. That's all right. Hezekiah comes in. He reverses all that. But then his son comes back in, Manasseh, and he does the exact same thing that Ahaz does. And he turns to support and befriends Assyria. So what does that tell us? That you've got Isaiah, who has gone to these four kings and is giving them advice. And has told them, don't turn to the Assyrians. And don't turn to Egypt. There's only one person you need to turn to, and that person is God. But the Israelites did not listen. They were stubborn. And we do the exact same thing, and you all have the exact same thing that happens underneath you in your auxiliaries, on your jobs, within your families. I'm going to skip 2 slides. And so when we think about, go back 1 slide if you don't mind. If we think about this whole concept of the challenges that Isaiah faced and the challenges that he was trying to teach the 4 kings of Judah, it's not an easy business. And what it often leads to is you feel weak. What it often leads to is we often feel complacent. And sometimes when people don't listen, when people are stubborn, and you got the enemy bearing down, we have a tendency to give up. You know, I think about the commercial, where you got the man coming in, he's sniffling and all this other kind of stuff, and we can't see who he's talking to, but he's sniffling and he says, you know, I just need a day off. And it turns out the person he's talking to is a child. But what that reminds us is, you know, we as parents, we don't have a day off. I mean, you got to stay on. I did a little bit of politics, and one of the toughest things about being a politician is that you're always on. And I will tell you, the same thing happens for our pastor. A pastor has to always be on. You all just see the little piece that you're asking for. But everybody's asking for the same thing. But when you think about pastor, you know, our jobs are typically 9 to 5, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. But pastor is on at home. He's on at the grocery store. He's on at the restaurant. He's on vacation. He's on weekdays and weekends. He's on days and evenings. We just heard that sometimes he's here till 9 o'clock at night. He's on with auxiliaries. He's on with counselors, preparing sermons, Bible study, Grace Institutes, auxiliaries, events, graduations, funerals, running the church staff, family, kids in college, kids at work, kids that need loans, household church, witnessing, lawn mowing, text messages from you all in art hall, calls, complaints, successes. Pastor, can you announce this or that? That's from us. That's from us. Now, we may not be the enemy that's coming down from the north, but sometimes the enemy is right here within our own family. Sometimes that enemy is right here within our own family, so we got to be careful what we do and how we approach Rev. I try to stay away from Rev as much as I can because I know there's always stuff that's happening. And if you're not careful, Rev, you can feel weak. You can feel your spirit waning. The other thing we have to watch out for is complacency. Sometimes we have this attitude where it's good enough. There's a saying that the enemy of the great is the good. Because once you're good, everybody talks about how good you are and how wonderful it is. But if you get too complacent, you won't take that next step to being great. So we got to be careful with not becoming complacent. We got to be careful with not allowing a weak spirit to come in. And the last thing we have to worry about is a tendency to give up, to call it quits. You know, it's not easy when you go out and give somebody advice and they don't take it. It's not easy when you go out and say, hey, don't turn to the north, don't turn to the south, just turn to God. And you look around and they've turned to the north. That can get waning on folks. Every Sunday, Rev gets up here and gives us a great sermon. We jump up and down, we wave our hand, we do all this other kind of stuff, but when we walk out that door, it's not always what he has suggested and what he has advised, or what God has advised. And if you're not careful as a leader, if you're not careful as a pastor, you can give up a little bit. But as we go to the next slide and as we get ready to close here, Isaiah says one thing. He says, don't turn to the north. Don't turn to the south, Rev. Turn to God. He said, wait upon the Lord. And what does wait mean? Wait means hope. And actually, the terminology that's used in the Bible is using small little strings and twisting them around to make a big rope. That means hold on. Hold on to the Lord, man. And if you feel weak, hold on to the Lord in order to grow stronger. If you feel complacent, wait upon the Lord to reach even higher. If you feel like giving up, hold on to the Lord to dig deeper. And that's for all of us. Every now and again, we've got to dig deep. Every now and again, we've got to look beyond the stuff that's happening around us, beyond the onslaught of the enemy that's coming down, beyond friends and family and other folks talking about you and trying to undermine you. And we got to dig deep into our faith and focus in and find God. I'm going to close with a poem that I love, and by a poet that I love, Langston Hughes. And it's entitled Mother to Son. And it says, well, son, I'll tell you, life for me ain't been no crystal stair. It's had tacks in it, and splinters, and boards torn all up, and places with no carpet on the floor. There. But all the time, I've been climbing on and reaching landings and turning corners and sometimes going into the dark where there ain't been no light. So, Rev, don't you turn back. Don't you sit down on them steps because you feel it's kind of hard. Don't you fall now, for I still going, honey. I still climbing. And life for me ain't been no crystal stair. Congratulations, Rev.